Okay, first of all, let me say good afternoon to members in the media. I know it has been a while since the BIU has had a press conference to address some issues that are going on in Bermuda. Certainly, there are three issues I want to address today. First one is going to be Bank of Butterfield. Then we'll address the Balco, I guess the Ascendant Group and the sale of Balco as a company. And the final item I want to speak about is the arbitration process once a matter has been referred to arbitration, if a dispute has been referred to arbitration, and how the outcomes of those arbitrations are leaving the BIU in a quandary as to whether or not the process is really working. So certainly, we would all be aware last week, Tuesday or Wednesday, there were 41 staff that were, for lack of a better word, given the axe by Bank of Butterfield. I think 30 of those individuals received some kind of package from Bank of Butterfield, whilst the other 11 were given some kind of redundancy package. And I'm not sure exactly how, Bermuda as a whole feels about these kind of things happening in 2019. Because certainly if one of those people happened to be either your mother, your father, a relative, a friend of yours who leaves their job on a Tuesday afternoon, goes home and thinking, well, I'm going back to work the next day, only to get to work to find out that they're being given the axe, that has to be really cool. I'm not sure whether Bank of Butterfield had any kind of compassion. Certainly in the organizer, people are given notice that these kind of things are going to take place. They're given reasonable notice, and based on, I guess, if you pay it by a week, you got a week's notice. You pay it by 2 weeks, you got 2 weeks' notice. You pay it by a month, you got a month's notice. So to leave work on an afternoon and then finally wake up the next morning thinking I'm going to have a job, only to find out I don't have a job, that has to be a cool feeling. I don't envy the position that those workers found themselves in last week. But certainly, I think the Premier of the country was also told that he was told the night before. Bearing in mind that in 2009, the PLP government gave the Bank of Butterfield a $200 million guarantee that if you're not able to do certain things, then we're going to be on the hook for $200 million. And now here we are, 9 years later, or 10 years later, just almost 10 years later now, the government, the bank has decided to make 41 people redundant. 41 people. Now, I'm not sure what percentage of staff that is for the bank, whether it's 10%, whether it's 20%, or whether it's 30%, because I'm not sure how many staff actually work for the Bank of Butterfield. I certainly heard, I like the comments that the Premier made, that, the ministry, the government ministers are going to do what they can to try to make sure they assist those individuals. My advice, I guess, to the people like who work in the banks and the unorganized there is to become organized. And that will hopefully give you some of the protection that you need against those employers who is going to behave like the Bank of Butterfield. The second issue I want to address is the issue that we've been hearing for a while now, that I think Ascendant Group is looking to, for lack of a better word, offload Balco. And we've been hearing through the grapevines that, the Balco workers a couple of months ago did have a sit-out because of Mr. Sean Duffy. My understanding is that Mr. Duffy is behind the scenes trying to make sure that Balco is sold to a Canadian company. And I certainly hope that the Bermuda government don't allow that to happen, because, and I say that with the greatest amount of respect, we currently right now have an airport that has been given to Aecon for the next 30+ years. We have the Bermuda Hospital, who've done an agreement with a Canadian group to build the new hospital. So why is it seems like, Canada might seem like it's the place to go. But certainly, I certainly hope that, as I said a moment ago, the government would do what it can to make sure that if that entity could remain Bermudian, if Balco wants $1 for the company, as long as we're prepared to raise that dollar capital within Bermuda, then those monies that right now are going to be, if it's sold to Canada, be transported out of Canada, the profits will be transported to Canada. They should be able to remain in our economy. So certainly there are some questions I think that the government needs to raise in relationship to this whole sale, to make sure that Mr. Duffy is not petting his own canoe or petting his own finances, and making sure this sale goes through to this Canadian company. The final issue that I want to address today is the whole issue of arbitration. You have seen over the years, from time to time, the BIU would have an industrial dispute with an employer. That matter is referred to arbitration. Once the matter has been referred to arbitration, neither party can have any kind of action that's going to take place. You'll be aware that the BIU went to an arbitration in 2017 for, a few of our members. I won't call the employer's name. Where we went, we represented those members, and the BIU actually won the arbitration. They were terminated for gross misconduct. The employer failed to prove gross misconduct, but the workers were not reinstated. They were given, one worker was given 8 weeks pay, the other worker was given 12 weeks pay, but they was not given a job back. Fast forward to just a couple of weeks ago, we have an arbitrated award, basically, and I didn't bring it with me. I think it's sitting right on my shirt. Sister Ronnie, can you get it for me? Because I actually want to read to you exactly what the arbitrator says. It's critical. Understanding that you go to a third party for them to look at the decision that was made, whether it was a termination, whether it's a suspension, to see whether or not that is justified. And certainly with what the arbitrator has wrote today, leads to BIU in a quandary as to whether or not we want to continue to go to this arbitration process. And the reason I'm saying that, because the arbitrator is making it sound, well, I'm not sure if the employer gave the worker a month suspension, could I reduce that to a 2-week suspension? Could I reduce that to a week suspension? Yeah, you could have. So I'm baffled as to why an arbitrator feels that, he has to be obligated to uphold the decision made by an employer. If that's the case, why are we going to arbitration? Why are we going to arbitration for them to make a ruling? We might as well just accept the suspension that was given or the termination that was given to that worker. Thank you, Sister Ronnie. Certainly, this is the conclusion on number 52, page number 12. And it says that, as it is for me, to substitute my view of the appropriate discipline action, as long as the discipline action, and listen to these words, falls within the range of penalties reasonably an employer might impose. Listen to the last sentence. I am obliged to conclude that I should not interfere with the decision by and I won't call the employer's name, by the employer to suspend Mr. So-and-so for 4 weeks. We'll come to you because we're complaining that our member got a 4-week suspension. So if y'all going to uphold the decision because you don't think you can reverse a decision made by the manager, why are we going to arbitration? Certainly, I would say to the members in the media and to the public who basically letting them know that the BIU is very concerned about this arbitration process and the fairness of it. We have such arbitrations that we've lost. We haven't come to the media to say, well, we lost the arbitration, now, here's the situation. And I gave you the example of the 2 workers that got fired because of gross misconduct, but the employer failed to prove gross misconduct, but they were not reinstated. This individual was given a 4-week suspension, and the arbitrator is saying, I'm not sure if I can reverse the decision made by the employer. That's what you're there for. That's what the third party is there for, to decide whether or not was that suspension excessive, or 4 weeks, should they be given 2 weeks or 1 week suspension. Any questions?
Yes, Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
Concerning the sale of Belco, do you fear further unrest in labor if the company is ultimately sold to a Canadian company?
Well, certainly I would say to you, Mr. Trott, is that, we continue to talk about Bermudian for Bermudians. Why do we continue to need to sell our businesses off or give our revenues to a Canadian company for whether the next 30 years being the airport deal, or sell a company to Canada for the next, I don't know how many years? Why? Belco has been a monopoly since, and of course we're having conversations about non-renewable energies and changing things or whatever have you. So certainly, over the next several years, will Belco continue to make the kind of profits it has continued to make? That remains to be seen. But certainly I think that, when we look at trying to bring down the cost of electricity and a number of other things, we certainly want to make sure that, Bermudians are paying attention, and the government today is paying attention to what is transpiring at Belco.
On Butterfield, the Premier has said the plan is to open up the retail banking sector to competition. Where do you stand on this?
Well, Mr. Trott, I can tell you that, that it's very interesting because, the Premier, I think the government has been calling for banks to be a bit more, flexible as relates to mortgage rates and a number of other things under the ABA when they were the government from 2012 to 2017 thought that the banks would try to do what they can to bring interest rates down, and it hasn't happened. It has not happened. Certainly, I think it's incumbent upon the Bermuda people now to demand things change. The saying is, the more things change, the more they remain the same. But I think certainly it's time, basically, with some of the things we learned over the 5 years under the ABA government, people want to see something different. And I think that the banks have made up their mind that they're going to continue to have these extra charges. You go in the bank, they tell me now if you go in a particular bank to get service, they're going to charge you $5 to come in to get the service. I'm like, you're charging me my money to come in to get my money out of your bank? Sounds to me like everybody should just take all the money and just bring it on to the credit union. Any further questions?
So are you calling on bank workers, people in the financial services, to get unionized, to organize with themselves?
I'm encouraging all workers who are not unionized, as a result of what happened to Bank of Butterfield workers last week. I'm encouraging every worker in Bermuda who is unorganized to become organized. I'm not saying you should join the BIU, but there are other unions that you can join other than the BIU. But certainly you should become organized. That will give you some protection. Any other?
But we usually don't hear from the union unless something's come to a head.
Yeah.
Can you speak to the general relationship between the union and businesses island-wide in general?
Well, I would say that for the most part, it's been, if you had to compare what's happened from July 2017, which was when the government changed, compared to where we are almost at July 2019, some 2 years down the road, things have gotten a bit better as relates to some things, but some things appear to be gotten worse. I mean, this situation with the banks, when we look at the Balco situation that's on the horizon or whatever, I mean, they removed Mr. Duffy from being the CEO and looked like he became the salesperson for Balco. That to me sounds like, it just seems like, it's Caesar going to Caesar, and, he should not be involved in making sure that this transition goes from, where it is now to in the hands of Canadians. That to me has to be clearly a conflict of interest. Has to be. But I might be wrong.
Is the government of the day doing enough for union relationships?
Well, I would say that I think that the Premier of Bermuda is doing what he can. Certainly, he's only one person, and as we say to a lot of managers from time to time, a lot of times while the top is trying to do his things correctly, it's your middle managers that's causing issues. So all I would say is that there might be a few ministers in the government, in the Premier's cabinet, they need to pull their socks up.
So, sorry, as far as the arbitration goes, it
Yeah.
would be handy if there were any way of having a look at more details on it.
Yeah.
I guess, what would you say to people who hear what you said today and think, well, the arbitrator decided in favor of the employer, what's the problem?
Well, remember now, look at the key words. I am obliged meaning that I shouldn't inherit this matter. That's what that implies. I'm obliged to conclude that I should not interfere with the decision of the employer to suspend so-and-so for a 4-week period. You appeal to the arbitration process because you think that the action that was taken by the employer was unfair. So if the arbitrator is going to have it easy, then we might as well not even have an arbitration. We might as well just go in the streets and see if we can get it settled that way.
And is that decision up on the court website, or is it?
Well, I can tell you. I know that they were talking about putting these arbitrator awards on the website. Whether this one's up there or not, I can't say. I can tell you that the BIU recommended, even though this worker got a 4-week suspension, we thought it was excessive. We recommended he should have got a week because of what he did. So we weren't recommending no suspension time. We was recommending he got a week suspension for what he did. So progressive discipline was telling us that a week would have been sufficient. And now we got the arbitrator saying, well, if the employer makes a decision, don't come to me because I really can't change it. That's what it's saying in a nutshell. And what I find interesting, and I'm glad you asked that question, because this very arbitrator, this very arbitrator that we have in front of us, on this document here, reversed a decision where an employee was terminated to say that he can't, the The employer terminated him, and he gave him a monetary award. Because he said the employer was wrong for termination. So how do you know a year later or a year and a half later, say, well, I'm not sure if I can change what an employee did? Yeah, you can change it. And I'm going to remind this chairman of this tribunal, when I write him to let him know that you made this ruling about 6 months ago, a year ago, here's the ruling you made. So are you telling me now in the future this is what the BIU can expect if we come before you as an arbitrator? Any further questions? Thank you.